Hi, everyone. Very, very good morning or good evening, wherever you're in the world, or good afternoon for that matter. This is a Scientific Talk Show. And if you've been following us, you know that this is where we discuss some really important talent matters across the world with great leaders in the industry who come from a business or HR background. Today on the show, I have Mr. Thomas Burnett. Thomas is an amazing HR leader who comes with a great multifaceted industry experience over 28 years. And with the banking industry earlier, more recently with the consumer food sector. And Thomas is someone who, when I met, impressed me completely for two reasons. One, he has an interesting view about HR, and I really loved talking to him about it. And we went on for some time, but couldn't help noticing, how beautiful the conversation we had. At the same time, you have such a great personality. Thank you for joining the show.
Thank you, Ashutosh. I'm happy to be here.
Great, great. Thanks, Thomas. So we have some interesting questions today. Today's topic is something which you are really pro at, Thomas, and we have spoken to leaders around this topic at different points of time, but now it's more pertinent than ever. And we're talking about how to build teams in the new age of business today. And the business has been shifting constantly after the pandemic, as you know. A lot of things are happening out there in the market. Business is under pressure on P&L. At the same time, the talent flow is changing every day. The supply is shifting to a newer age talent pool, while they're at the same time impacted by the changes in the AI side of the business. So, what's your view about that, Thomas? What do you think about uh, why is it important to build great teams in this new era?
Yeah. Look, Ashutosh, I think if I look at our industry here, we have our turnover is ranging somewhere between 30 to 60% on an annual basis, depending on what country we're talking about. This is a huge cost that as an organization we go through. So in order to reduce the turnover and keep that talent inside, um, I think upskilling is one of the most important items we're talking about. We have here at Americana, we have the Americana University, Uni as we call it, and one of the biggest items for us is to focus on upskilling, offer people courses, whether it's online or in person. We have partnered with Coursera for that purpose as well. Offer these courses in order to give them the opportunity to add additional skills to their portfolio. I'm a firm believer of zero wasted talent, and very often I see that sometimes I guess we judge someone's performance based on just simply looking at that person without considering maybe the match between the manager isn't right, maybe the match between the team members isn't right, the task is maybe not right, maybe we haven't done the right thing to give the proper upskilling opportunity for the individual, not having provided the learning. I believe there is a place for everyone in an organization, and so for us, I think our focus is, I think you and I talked about it, to build a skill ontology framework for Americana restaurants where we can have everybody's skills that everybody updates on LinkedIn happily. We have this information internally and then start matching these skills against the job, and thereby get the better performance, get better happiness, and thereby, I think, hopefully drive the retention up as well.
That is a great way to put it. And I like the way you said that, how it directly connects to the happiness and retention quotient too, because great teams, when they come together, they obviously build great companies as well. So as a head of HR for Americana, you have been into a role which is pivotal, I would say, in some ways, where obviously you would have been challenged by some interesting factors, specifically around making sure that the talent you hire is relevant to the business. So, what is that, which is a if there's a message you like to give to the talent which is coming into Americana, what would that message be? Why is it such an exciting place to be today?
Look, three things come to mind immediately. I think the one is who doesn't like food? The second one I can think of is who doesn't want to work for a company that is effectively growing around 12, 15% annually. And I think that the third thing that comes to mind is like, who doesn't want to be at the workplace with a diversity of close to 100 different nationalities? So many stories that come from such a portfolio of talent. If I go step by step through it, I mean, yeah, I spent 25 years in the financial industry. I had a hard time in the evening to explain to my kids what I actually did. That's not the case anymore. I think with the kids, I have the biggest fans now understanding and appreciating the work that is going on in these restaurants. I had two of my boys even spent the summer last year here and spend time in the restaurant. So appreciating that work that is going on there is the first and foremost aspect of what we here highlight in Americana. In coming to the second point of this 10 to 15% growth opportunity. So obviously with that here in the company, everybody is treated like an entrepreneur. We expect people to look obviously at the admin part of any work, but everybody gets involved into the strategic elements as well. And this provides an enormous learning opportunity. If you're here, there is possibilities to take jobs in different functions. Thereby grow. We have obviously career passes in the restaurants, so that if you start there, it can get you up to the restaurant general manager, and if you continue there, there's assessment centers that get you up to the area director that you oversee 50, 60 restaurants. That is one path that people are taking, and obviously in the support functions, there is passes as well for the different functions in finance, development, IT, etc. So for us, this aspect of growth provides tons of opportunities, many projects that are going on that allow people to look right and left and what they would like to do. And then coming back to my favorite theme is like having like close to 100 different nationalities here. This cultural diversity and celebrating each other's cultural backgrounds is fascinating. The stories that everybody brings to the table and leveraging this diversity for the better of the company. For me, this is probably the most exciting part of being here in the Middle East and working for Americana restaurants, from looking at a spectrum of Morocco on the west side and Kazakhstan on the east side. So for us, this is I think the most exciting part.
Thank you for sharing that, and I'm sure it make it very exciting for people looking to join your immense organization. And restaurant is a tough but a very, very interesting business, and for people who get excited by it, can make great careers here. So Thomas, one thing which I've seen typically is that leaders in today's time, they seem to be shifting on their careers more frequently than before. And that's a trend which is kind of picking up for various reasons. It could be because of organizational dynamics. And this is not about Americana restaurants specifically. I'm talking about a general industry question here. As an industry leader, what's your view about what should the leaders be watching out for when they look for staying longer in an organization, or how can organizations retain leaders for a longer period? Any tips or tricks on that?
Yeah, I think if I reflect on my own, indeed, I have changed roles about every three years or so. Changed them either in the same company by looking for other opportunities and going to some other countries within the same company, or switching companies. To me, I think this is one of the most important aspects of the period that we're living in. That at the end, the skills that we bring to the table have to get formed and shaped by different experiences. And these different experiences you hardly get being in the same role for 20 years. You probably have different experiences all over 20 years. Obviously, things change. But in order to get it faster, in order to grow faster, if that is someone's ambition, I think proactively seeking roles that put you out of the comfort zone, I think is one of the most important aspect and career advice. I think, and that out of comfort zone means different things to different people, obviously. For us, it was, or for me personally, it was like going to different countries. I wanted to experience different parts of the world. I switched roles between finance, risk management, treasury, and now HR for me, I wanted to really fully understand the different parts of these functions and the added value that is coming, and started then over time to see that there is a network of data, there's a network of information, and there's a network of people. And once you start connecting this across these different functions, you generate even more value for yourself, for the company, and for me that is probably the biggest highlight of career development in this path. So I have a total appreciation if somebody says, look, I'm joining your company. I do 2 years. I as a leader would say, thank you very much. Let's make the best out of these 2 years. And I should, if I have a keen interest on keeping this person in the company, I should look for the next opportunity, which is not just like a slight step right or slight step right. I look for an opportunity that is putting this person out of comfort zone, because there is all of us want to learn, all of us want to grow, and hence I think we as an organization need to provide these learning opportunities. Is it either by courses, or is it by projects, or is it by new roles? And I think this will help us to increase the retention. For that, I think we have really set up the team here, the people and culture function, to build stronger processes and tools around it. And I think just simply be open about the fact that the average tenure of someone to a company is probably just about 2 years these days. It's a generational effect that has come over the years, and I think it puts us on the leadership side finally really into a situation where we can't just lean back and say like, oh, talent is there forever. I think we have to think creatively, and I think that's the exciting part about this job.
And that's a very modern thinking or view, Thomas. And I really appreciate you putting it on the table, because in words of Barb, who wrote this beautiful book on reimagining careers, something she said there was that it's not about how many years experience you have, right? It's how many years you've packed into the experience. So I think that's a trick, that how many years have you genuinely packed into the experience. That's for leaders, that if they have moved around roles in the same organization and found significant roles, lateral shifts, upward shifts, it kind of makes them more mature, more rounded, more learned, and therefore they're more valuable to the organization as well. So a CHR like you, leaders like you, can find easier connection to such people who you can move around the organization anywhere. And I think that's a really good way to put it there. Thanks for sharing that. I'm going to ask you something very funny here, Thomas. And on your LinkedIn, I saw these words, go big or go home. What does it really mean for you?
Go big or go home. Yeah, I believe some colleague back in Canada came up with a quote for me, and since then I adopted it. The colleagues internally, whenever I log into some MS Teams call, or when I make a post on Viva Engage, they see the Go Big and Go Home logo out there. It's written at my desk, and you come to my desk, you see it there right into the face. I think it stands for a couple of values that I probably have demonstrated, and I feel strongly about. It's this willingness to take the risk, but while setting very ambitious goals, and don't give up on these goals. Really fight for them, strive for being excellent on that. And I think another thought perhaps on that is that over the years I had the opportunity to reflect a lot. Obviously, and one moment was we were paired with some coach. And people came and said, "Look, you're kind of like the Indiana Jones of our company," and I think that was something that stood out there. Like I'm really looking out to find this holy grail. In this case, for Americana on the people function side, to come up with the best processes, the best practices, the best tools that can help us put the organization in a better footing. And I think over time I came up with my purpose statement, which is a bit like in a direction of like to really have people long for this brilliant illumination up on the hill. So I think our role as leaders is to put the vision out there, to draw this picture of this golden castle and make people long for it, and then let them tell us what tools they need to get there. So I believe this is really how I see my leadership role, and not be the one that kind of like climbs up first and they're like, come, but really have people actually see that castle and want to go there, and just provide them with the tools. And I think thereby you get a bigger movement, and nobody goes up one after each other. I think you get a wider group of people going up the hill. So to me, this is a bit the go big, go home story.
That's really, I loved it. That's amazing analogy and description both. And that's a good segue to another conversation. And thanks for sharing. That's very inspiring. Um, you know, leaders have a big role in building teams, right? And the art of building a great team is somewhat led with what you just said to a large extent, right? Like that, how do leaders ensure that they're just not focused on their own personal growth, but they build an amazing team around themselves, which can lead to fulfilling the larger purpose of the organization and the department where they're working for. So, is there an art of building a great team for young new leaders getting into that role, or even for existing tenured leaders?
Look, I'm sure there's not one answer to that question. I think everybody has over the years come up with their formula that works for themselves. There's so many different leadership styles out there. I think if you go back to one of these leadership models, I think there's this idea of like being somewhere in between, like too much people focused and too much task focused, and you come up with this idea of being a democratic leader. And at the end, I think over time that idea of kind of developed more into the direction of being a visionary leader, and that is transformational. And I think this is a bit where I see probably the biggest effectiveness on teams. It's the leader that indeed surrounds themselves with people that are much smarter than him or herself, and activates their potential, right? And for me, it always starts with a vision. I think if you just focus on the task, I think people get tired, people get bored, people kind of like log off. And I think the moment you communicate a vision on a continuous basis to a team, you get these followers. And I think this is for me the first and most important part. And then constantly reflect, listen. I think last year when we screened the market for tools that we can implement here to improve the processes, you go into the first meeting and you have your mind like this is the thing, and I just need to convince my team, and then the team comes back and says like, we don't like this, we don't like that. I mean, there's one way, it's like yeah, shut up, like no, this is the thing. And I kept listening, and over time we lost a bit of time by screening more tools, but we came up with a much better tool at the end, because at the end people bought into that vision and reflected on those whenever we looked at tools or processes, and whatever we built eventually was a much stronger outcome. And to me, that is that aspect of listening and leveraging the diversity that is in the team. But it starts with the vision, and then the reflection and listening aspect. And then and then the last part is obviously then to get that team to be committed to the execution of it. And yeah, these are the three elements. And I find if I look back in my previous team in Romania, the teams before in Canada, I think we always got that art right in executing our ideas, our vision, by looking at different ideas, reflecting together, fighting it out. It's sometimes it requires a good fight amongst these peers, and then commit to the execution, and that was usually a really successful journey.
Thanks for sharing that. That actually leads me to another question: is that listening is very, very hard, and is the simplest thing, but is the hardest thing for leaders to follow. And I've seen in my own experience as an executive coach, as well as a leader in the industry, often I've come across some great leaders who, stop listening after a while. They're listening to themselves, but not listening to the teams. So the example you just gave us, great example. Uh, is there a surgeon's prescription here, if I may ask, where leaders who are listening to this conversation should reflect and work on the listening skills, because that can do so much good everywhere?
Yeah, I believe it requires patience to some extent. So I think if the patience is missing, then yeah, you simply don't allow the listening take part. I think it requires at the same time a good manager on top of yourself, which I think I feel very fortunate to have, and have somebody that understands these aspects as well. So it's very difficult in an organization to be that single leader that follows this kind of path while everybody around you is on a completely different dimension. So having a leader here that is understanding these aspects and giving that freedom, while at the same time obviously having a high expectation, but seeing that you kind of like work through with the team through it, you build something sustainable, was at least is in my case one of the most important fundamental elements. If there's at least left one organization in the past where I felt like, look, there was a leader that did not have this kind of patient, that did not see eye to eye with that vision. So if you don't have that on top of you, how can you provide this kind of shield to your team and allow them to develop? So to me, there needs to be this link to the top, but as well then into the team in order to be fully in synchronization with that.
Thanks for sharing that, and I hope everyone found that really valuable. Uh, I'm getting a feed here that there are a lot of questions coming up, and please keep them coming in, and do make sure that you ask more questions and your comments on what you're hearing from Thomas and me today. And my team will ensure that we respond back to you now or a little later. So keep them coming. Thomas, moving back to the conversation, one more thing which you mentioned, I was thinking about some time back, you've been a leader for many years now, but you were also a team member, or maybe a very young team member. I mean, we're both very young even now, but a much younger team member, let's say. So, as a young team member, what if you reflect back now as a leader to that younger Thomas, that conversation, but let's say from Dubai to Romania or wherever you were at that point of time,
Yeah.
what would be that one thing or maybe two things or more you'd say to that young team member to do better? And that could be an advice for other younger team folks to become leaders in the future.
Yeah. The one element that comes to mind is there's this book of Simon Sinek on investing 10,000 hours to really master a subject, and I think
That's
that
an
is
amazing book. Yeah.
yes, yes, and I think many of us that have gone through 25 years plus careers, we can call out the cases where we have spent 10,000 hours easily on a subject. If I look at my young teenage kids these days, I'm not sure they have the patience to invest 10,000 hours. However, they're not realizing that they spend at least 10,000 hours already playing some kind of game in order to compete with other people around the globe. So I think it's making people realize that mastering a subject is not coming from 10 or 100 hours. It really comes from these 10,000 hours, and it requires the commitment, maybe a mini version of go big or go home for the individual, to say, okay, I really want to master this. That is the commitment to this excellence, and I think this is for me one of the key elements. If I look back in terms of trigger points throughout my career, you cannot just expect to be from 9 to 5 at work and eventually being the master. It requires taking additional education, doing perhaps an MBA on the side or some other kind of program, read books. I think my message to my younger generation and here also to colleagues is take courses, go to Coursera, do the upskilling, read the books around it, find that moment at home to reflect on it, because these are all the hours that count. If it's just the day-to-day work, it will not get you to that same position. And to me, that I think this is probably the key takeaway if I look back the last 25 years or even further back.
Thanks that's a really well way to put it. And I think that's a huge takeaway for younger team members who are making their way to become leaders, team leaders, wherever they are. I remember I had a wonderful boss once upon a time who told me people just reach out to him and say, X team member left at 5 o'clock. And his response was, if they have done the job and they're leaving at 5 o'clock, let's not be a clock watcher. But if they're investing their time after that to learn and build themselves, I'm really happy with them. So it's amazing that the message here, key message here that I want to just underscore right now is that for people, leaders or team members or whichever generation they're into, what's really important is that it's not just the work hour learning which you do. And I hope there are a lot of companies which have great learning teams, and some companies do not have great learning teams. But the investment you need to put in yourself beyond work is so critical to become that tall leader where you want to be. So
Correct.
I hope you agree with it, Thomas, right?
Yes. Fully, Ashutosh. I think it's the learning, finding the time to read, finding the time to learn, and maybe on top even then reflect, being reflective. I think taking that walk in the evening instead of watching some television show, taking that walk and reflecting on the day, reflecting on the task at hand, reflecting on the problem that needs to be solved. That thinking process is what will lead to the mastery of the subject. And I think very often, if I look back, I love walking in the evening, taking that 1 hour walk, stroll in the neighborhood during the night to just reflect on the day, reflect on the discussion, reflect on perhaps an element of frustration, and look in the mirror, admit perhaps that this is a mistake done by me. I'm on the wrong course, and then change instead of being completely like nonsensical in that way, and next day just dig harder, right? And I think this is a bit where I feel the learning plus the reflection time is what helps, especially the young generation, to make the next career step.
Super tip. I just want to make sure that people take a lot away here on this one. In fact, I was reminded about another thing when you're saying that is that in my conversation I had with one of my professors at in a short MIT course I took around neuroscience, one thing she said was that the neural pathways which we develop in our brains over a period of time just goes like one kind of a highway, which the cars keep going back and forth, like the pulse which keeps going back in the brain back and forth. And what leads to that is that people are unable to think laterally when it comes to cracking some problems which are unknown to them. And
Mhm.
exactly like you said, taking a walk, thinking through it, cracking the problem in different ways, and allowing your brain to think differently than just one way on
Yeah,
and through learning is super critical nowadays to every organization.
absolutely, absolutely.
So let's shift into something really personal here, Thomas, if you're okay with that. Uh,
Sure, sure.
I warned you that's not going to be easy, so I'm going to ask you some interesting questions there. Um, you would have had some moments of frustration, some moments when you fell back in your life, and I had been through some or many in my life too at different points of time where I had to pick myself up and get going, and it's not easy. And nowadays, what's happening, it's increasingly going on. There's a recent research scientist did, and we discovered that the number of jobs or number of people stepping in zones which are not very comfortable around the jobs is increased exponentially over the last 3 to 3.5 years. And it's very interesting data through the poll and through the survey which we did. And we were quite surprised. I personally was hard hit to understand what's going on out there, right? But more importantly, that's a different side of the problem we'll crack another time. But more importantly, the people who do get hit by a sudden letter where they leave the organization or a change in the job or role or country, uh, how do you handle that? What did Thomas do whenever whatever situation you came in? We don't need to get into that, but what happened to you at that moment, and how did you pick yourself up? Any great inspirational tips there?
Yeah, yeah. Look, I think it's a great topic you bring up because I also believe all of us go through these situations. I think there's always somebody that will throw a curveball at us. I mean, it could be the boss, could be the peer, could be the spouse, could be the kids, could be even just the driver that you compete with on the way to work, right? That suddenly creates a situation for you and creates this moment of frustration, and it suddenly feels like there's a cloud moving in over your head, and you get your mood swing. And I think these are the moments to take a really deep breath, go and step back a little bit, maybe step on a balcony and take a wider view, and give your thinking brain a chance to kind of like reflect on that moment. And for me, this is a way of navigating through these frustrating situations that are common. I think nobody should think like, oh, it's just happening to him or her. This is a moment that all of us have. That's the exciting part of a diverse society. And yeah, I think that the deep breath, the moment to think and reflect, to perhaps admit that it was my mistake, instead of blaming the other, and then continuing. And I think this is very often, if I look back, it's if somebody continues to just throw the ball at the others, I think this will never end. I think there was if I look back at I studied my MBA at the Richard Ivey School of Business in Ontario, Canada, and the strategy professor at the time, he said, like, once you're in a hole, stop digging. And I think this quote resonated well with all 50 people in that class, and resonated since over these last 15 years with us. If you're in a hole, stop digging. And that is, I think, the best way to think about this frustrating moment that all of us have. Lean back, take a deep breath, and look on a way out of that hole.
That's great advice. And I know for a fact that this would be very helpful to people out there, because there is a huge shift happening as we speak. One more curveball at you, Thomas. Is that, did you ever think about that you need an inner sense of calling or a sense of purpose to keep going in your career? Because you've done amazing. You've been in the banking industry, you've been on the risk and compliance side. You are a very tall HR leader today. How have you looked at that very, very intrinsically, if I ask you that very personal question?
Yeah. Look, I think finding that purpose, I believe, is one of the key elements to staying calm in the business world, that especially here in the Middle East is, I would say, gives the term VUCA a completely different meaning. So I'm happy to say that a couple of years back, I had that fortunate moment to with my peers and with that coach to discover that purpose. And as I mentioned earlier, it is to have people long for the building of illumination up on the hill. And to me, that is the way I saw suddenly myself from a different perspective, and it has given me the way to judge whether the role I'm in right now is the right role for me, whether the go home mission links back to that purpose. So in a way, for me, this is what I strongly believe in. Many years back, and at one organization, there was an extremely visionary leader, and what I liked about him is that he figured out already back in 2007-8 that it was important to give everybody that joined the organization that feeling of finding their purpose. We, at that time, were asked to read the book The Alchemist. I'm sure you have read it. I've read it 3 times by now, and I think it's a correct. It's a wonderful book, and I can just recommend everybody that has that moment of frustration and have never read this book, just take this book, read it. It is at least in a way mind-sobering to that point that you see yourself from a different lens. And I think to me that is probably one of the most important elements. We have started here, let's say, at Americana Restaurants, for anybody new joiners to go through that process in the onboarding, to also say, look, why don't we read this book together? Joining our organization here is probably very different from the organization you're coming from. You might feel frustration. You might come with ideas and plans and suddenly realize that this place is different. It ticks faster. It ticks in a way that you might just want to go back. And in order to help you reflect through this and stay with us for this year to say, hey, I finally landed. We thought it is a good idea to read the book, The Alchemist, together, give them questions, sit down with them on a monthly basis, reflect on these questions, and link these questions back to work situations, and make them feel okay about it. And I think this is, to me at least, something where again, there's people that love being focused on the task. I think we need to shift somewhere towards the people side a bit more in these moments, and I think this is a good moment to put people first and look at their inner calling. And I come back as well to some extent. I think all of us have a job, a role that we kind of like are supposed to play based on the org structure, the box that is kind of like allocated to us, right? However, like I said earlier, I believe in the zero wasted potential. There is something else in each and every one that is an organization that is not coming out unless you empower the person to play that role. And I think this is the role besides the job, that is somebody that's extremely social, that perhaps is the one that organizes kind of like the social committee. Like there's persons, once you start talking to them, you realize they have an extreme, they're extremely keen on CSR, just that they're not part of the CSR committee. So why not taking them in, because their heart longs for this kind of golden castle. So you just say, okay, your role is X, but I want you to be part of this. And the funny part is it creates the engagement, because these folks suddenly feel they're not just doing a job and will in 2 years' time look for the next job to grow. They suddenly feel fulfillment. There's engagement coming from that. You get the retention because these people feel they're living their purpose, even that nobody had to find it for them. And to me, this is probably the most important thing on the HR side, that we look beyond that box in the org chart and find what is special about that person, and allowing that person to live, to empower that person to live that purpose. And I think this is where a lot of energy and performance for the organization is coming from.
Thanks for sharing that, and very pertinent point out there. I think going beyond the box, you're into the role, and literally, I mean, that's a metaphor in a way as well, that you got to unshackle yourself. At Scientech, we do a lot of work with clients around unlocking potential, as we call it, for teams in careers, because we have made a direct connection to productivity and business on that, or through our research, that what really goes on is that when people are doing their job, and just a job, over a period of time, they may feel frustrated because they're not growing fast enough. But the organization has an equal handshake to help them grow faster. And therefore, by helping them unlock the potential, like you said, which is beyond what they're doing today, which could be a few yards to the left or the right, and they may be really good at that. And whether we use a Clifton Strength Finder or whether we use our own proprietary tool, we're able to help people unlock the potential and say, okay, leverage this person and build a career path for every individual. So the concept of mass career customization, which I think Katie Banko wrote a book on that in Deloitte, is a big help, because what happens is when every career is customized to their career growth path, it leads to a humongous movement in the organization to change drastically on the productivity, on the business approach, and the success. So I relate to that big time, Thomas. That's really, really well said. I have a penultimate question for you, and I know you're a very busy man, but thanks for coming on the show. And before we let this wrap up for today, two very important questions which we are seeing here from our audience. Question number one, it's like a bit of a rapid fire, Thomas, but not literally a rapid fire. So the first question is,
I logged into the chat as well.
Exactly. I wish I had a bar stool right now and I'm in a hot chair right now. But the first question is, why is it important to have a network of advisors?
Look, for me, it is getting the diversity of feedback, and advisors should not just be career advisors. I think it should be a good mix of people that also have an understanding of education and family. And I think at the end, there's many situations that you stand at the crossroad of going right or left in your career, or going right or left on a personal ask. Get these opinions out from these trusted advisors. Do a bit of probability weight on those. Like, don't take it at face value, because everybody has their own context perhaps to that question. Hear them out and put it in front of you, and then judge based on that what is the best situation for you. So for me, having the network of advisors is very important, but it needs to be a mix. It cannot be just career advisors, because then you will know what the answer is before you ask it. And so it needs to be a mix where family as well as the education, personal growth is part of it. And so absolutely important.
Super, great answer. I remember there's a book by Keith Ferrazzi about Never Eat Your Lunch Alone, I think that's called, if I'm getting the name right. And it's about how do you build a board of advisors from different phases of life. So thanks for sharing that. Next question to you, very quickly. I'm trying to make it dramatic. It's not that coming out as quickly. What's that one advice to a leader transitioning his or her career they should watch out for?
Should watch out for. Yeah, I think don't come too predetermined with you are the best understanding, you have the best understanding joining a new organization. I think the most important thing for the first 3 months, at least, is just to be there, to listen, and to take the time even to go beyond the boundaries of your kind of like department or function that's assigned to you. Like I started here going down into the restaurants. I made pizza dough. I breaded the chicken. I wanted to understand how hard the work is of these team members in the stores. I went to Egypt. I went to Saudi. I went to Oman. I wanted to see the different places to really get a feel for the culture, listen to the people, and get a broad understanding. I think the biggest mistake many do is they come, they believe they know the answers, they judge from wherever background they're coming into the organization, and then realize that after 3 or 6 months, nobody's listening to them anymore. So I think for me, the greatest advice is to take the time, 3-6 months, and listen, feel the pulse of the organization before giving advice on what changes should be done.
Thanks, Thomas. I promise you 2, but my team has pushed me one more question. I promise this is the last one for you. You're someone who has moved countries, and you've been in Dubai and you're thriving. God bless, is really good. What's advice to people? Dubai is a popular location to make careers and be here from a lifestyle perspective for people. People looking to move into Dubai who are listening to the show beyond Dubai, in other countries, Europe maybe, or UK, or other parts of Europe, or other subcontinent. What is that one advice for them when they're looking to make their way to Dubai or the Middle East for the career?
Yeah. In my case, it was, we went with family first. We wanted to actually see the place for ourselves. I wanted to have the family feel comfortable and happy. I think it's a fast-moving place, and joining an organization will take a lot of time for anybody coming in. So the first few months, there will be very little time you have for family, and hence I wanted to make sure the family is safe, the family feels very comfortable, the school situation is clear. So we invested a lot of time before me putting a signature on the contract to make sure this is in. This is, I think, my greatest advice. If the family doesn't feel good, then the career will not take off, right? And I think we all know that we need to feel at work that there is no problem at home. And I think this is probably the advice for anybody coming in. It's a great place. However, it's also very, very diverse, and you need to find the pocket. You need to drive a bit around first to understand where's the place you can feel really home quick, and so that you can really show the best at work.
Thanks, Thomas. That is a great answer. You've been extremely honest and candid with your response. That's you. I really appreciate your authentic responses there. I think the leaders all the listeners would definitely, and leaders or teams would feel probably it coming literally out of the camera out there to them. Um, we at Scientific do help people also with relocation advisory. And like Thomas said, if you have questions around that, my team would love to help you come to Dubai or UAE or Middle East or any other international relocation. Uh, there are things to watch out for, like Thomas said, and starts with the family. But also, as you make your way, it could mean that you need to watch out for the kind of skills you have today and genuinely there in the region you're trying to move, wherever you are trying to move. And Dubai is thriving today with a lot of push from the government, a lot of good things happening here. But and a lot of great businesses like the one Thomas is part of today. So do please reach out to us if we can respond to any questions. And thank you for all the questions. I'm sorry we're not able to answer all your questions today, but my team will reach out to you. Scientific will ensure we respond back to as many questions as we can, one-to-one and otherwise. Thomas, it's been amazing to have you on the Scientific Talk. Thank you again, and I will meet you soon.
Thank you, Ashutosh. Looking forward to it. All right, cheers.